Hey, everybody, welcome. I am Angelic Elrod. I am having the pleasure of switching roles and interviewing Petey and Sarah from Therapy Unfiltered. They have an incredible podcast that I've had the pleasure of being part of, and I met them when I was in Costa Rica. We are doing a retreat together coming up in May, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to stop in and ask some of the questions we've all been dying to hear about past life regression and past life regression therapy. So, welcome, ladies. It's so good to have you.
This is so great to be on the other side of it, Angelique. I love this.
First time ever, and for episode 100, like, what a gift. Thank you for hosting.
Episode 100. That's so significant, and we thought you'd be perfect for that.
Celebrating that. It's always such a pleasure to be with you guys. No wonder your podcast is doing great. You have a lot of big things happening. I love to just sit and chat with you guys. So switching roles feels natural and organic. So let's jump into it. So past life regression, we're hearing a lot about this. You know, I'm plugged in with you guys, so I have a lot of my own questions. I'll be joining you at the retreat. So I thought to myself, what are some of the things that I want to know, as well as some of the people who may be thinking about joining our retreat? Let's start with, what is past life regression? What is the word regression? What are we speaking to when we say that?
Yeah, well, I think past life regression is, of course, based on the concept of reincarnation. So that's the concept that the soul or your consciousness will live on through multiple lifetimes. And the regression piece of it is a technique that's used to access people's memories or their subconscious that they experience from past lives. So by tapping into the subconscious mind, that's when the past life regression can show these other aspects of the soul's journey that they're taking through time. Yeah.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah. It is,
So,
right?
what would be the difference between past life regression and past life regression therapy?
Yeah.
So, what I understand, so in past life regression, you are in a hypnotic state and you're going through this lifetime, through childhood, through birth, and into past lives where there's stored trauma. A lot of people just do the past life regression where they can see the past life and they understand who they were in a past life. They see it, they hear, or they feel it. They just know it. The difference, and I love that I was able to train under mom, is that the therapeutic part, that there is the healing that happens, that you are getting answers to why these traumas happened in past lives, why these difficult relationships were there, what you need for healing to fully release any of that stored trauma in the body. So a lot of people come and they say, well, I tried it. It didn't really do anything, but that's because they just had the past life regression and they have the knowing, but they don't have the healing in it.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, very well said. Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're saying. So there's the experience, like seeing a memory, and then there's a therapeutic process about the memory. And that's what's going to be fundamentally different going into practice with you as they go into a deeper process with those memories. Is that correct? And the way it might be currently influencing their life or the directions that they aren't heading.
Yeah, that is right. Because that's the whole thing, is that there's this carryover, right, from one lifetime to another that's in those cellular memories. So these memories and the feelings or any trauma from past lives are still affecting people today. And if they don't find it from the source in this lifetime, that's when they show up in our office. It's like these difficulties are presenting over and over. It can't be really explained. And that's where we get people that have been in therapy 3, 4, 5 times, and they're still struggling with these topics. So these are the people, they're in our life and they're looking for healing. And some people just, though, actually just feel like they have a calling, like, I just am curious.
Yeah.
But we end up doing healing even for the curious seekers, because of course the soul always takes you back to the lifetime you need to see for a healing piece. It really does. Even if it's like finding the greatest love, that was what that person needed to experience and reconnect with in their cellular memory. So there is many reasons people, choose to do it, but there is, right, Sarah, there's always a healing piece.
Yeah, and I was going to say about that a lot of people, it's not always about healing something traumatic, that some people are, they meet somebody in this current lifetime and they're like, I am so drawn to this person. There's some kind of like connection. I feel the spark. Just somebody, they said, just felt this electricity as soon as we touched hands and we just got along. And they're sure there's just been some connection beyond this life. And so they get curious about how have we been connected outside of this lifetime? Which is really interesting, because then they can find their soul contract in a past life and understand why they are in this life now.
And you know what? Another great one, and another piece of the healing, Angelique, can come in with physical, right? The physical healing that can take place. Just like I had one client, severe asthma, went back to her last lifetime. She was on all this medication, found her life in Egypt as a pharaoh, and being so overwhelmed, he was constantly taking a breath. It went into this form in this lifetime as severe asthma. After that one session, she was never on medication and never experienced another symptom of asthma.
Oh,
it was incredible. Cool. She is like, I'll come on your show and talk all about it. Yeah, so it can be this physical healing, actually, that manifests too.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I think it really speaks to what can call people to your practice as well. I was just thinking that people who kind of continuously hit a brick wall and they really need to explore beyond, what they've tried for years. And I think it's just such an interesting way to enter, and knowing about trauma on a cellular level, it makes a lot of sense that we can process something and then the physiological aspects of the trauma begin to release and dissolve themselves. So, I'm all about that stuff. But a question that popped up for me that I know will probably pop up for many people is, have y'all had connections in past life regressions as mother and daughter? Has that ever come up in your journeys?
I think every time.
Yes. Well, not necessarily mother and daughter in past lives, but always in some capacity, because obviously she's in my soul group, and it's been as a student, as a best friend. I mean,
Mom, explain what a soul group is.
Oh, okay. Your soul group is, there's 72 in your soul group, very strangely specific number that was channeled to me. And when you're between lifetimes creating your soul contract, it is your soul group that you choose different souls out of to act a certain role in this lifetime for your spiritual learning. So while she was my student in another lifetime, then she may have been the best friend in another lifetime. This lifetime, she's my daughter. Who knows? Maybe next time you'll be my mother. I don't know. But I obviously love coming back with her. So yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, and during the regression, there is an opportunity to look into the eyes of those around you when you're in the past life, and to recognize their soul from who you know in this current life. And that's when I've had, my brother come through, or mom, or some best friends that show up in different roles as maybe my kids or my wife or my husband, or because gender shifts. Sometimes you're in the female body, or sometimes you're in a male body. But yes, Mom and I seem to be quite connected as we roll through different lifetimes.
Yes, very connected.
Yeah, I would imagine there's a lot of and it's a beautiful energy, and you can feel it when certain people come together. So I think for a lot of us, we look at the mother-daughter dynamic, and there is something special to it. That's like, oh yeah, it makes sense that y'all have done this before in different roles. So can you speak to what are the origins of past life regression? Where did this, how long has this been done? When we go down the rabbit hole, where does it take us?
Well, in the Western world where we are, the whole idea of past lives was introduced in the early 1900s by psychologist Carl Jung, one of my all-time favorites, because he was actually the first one to introduce this whole concept of the collective unconscious. And that's the suggestion that we all have this access to the shared knowledge base that includes our past life experiences. So, but I know you probably want to know, if we go all the way back to the beginning, we'd have to go back to centuries ago, like India and Greece and Egypt, because it was believed there that the soul would be reborn into multiple lifetimes, because they believed in that endless cycle of life and death, birth and death. And I don't know if you realize this, but the concepts of reincarnation and past lives also can be found in the writings of many of the world's religions, including Christianity. This is interesting. It got removed from Christian teachings in the 6th century AD for political reasons, but it was documented. They have found it in the writings. So I find that fascinating. And then in the 20th century, all of these regressions became so much more popular, right? Because that was when Edgar Casey was here, and as who trained me, Dr. Brian Weiss and Michael Newton. So they really popularized it. When you say, Sarah?
No, it's great. I never knew the fact about that it was removed from Christianity. That is something I have not heard, which is amazing. But yeah, Edgar Casey, he mom uses his name very casually because she was raised in Virginia Beach, where he was based out of the Association for Research and Enlightenment. So he was a sleeping prophet, and he would go into this trance and be able to tell you if there was an ailment that you needed to heal, if there was something in your past life that needed to heal. He went into his own hypnotic trance and could tell you what you needed for healing. But for me, it was really, my understanding was around Brian Weiss, when he was a therapist, and he had a client in hypnosis spontaneously go into a past life and started having all these lived experiences. So he wrote Many Lives, Many Masters. So a lot of people know that book. And it was able to then expand from that about like, well, you can't deny some of the things. And, mom and I are very spiritual and very science-based. And I think whenever we do any kind of regressions, we listen for the names and the places and the years and where they're going, and then Google it and fact check it.
Yes, we do.
And that's what's amazing. Yeah. Because then people are able to verify. I mean, so many people cannot know these expansive facts and names and specifics just on the spot. It's impossible. And so when that is told and verified, it brings more, I don't know, just validity. Yeah. It makes it feel, very solid, because it can get into this big space that's, some people it's like hard to understand. And so the more concrete it feels, it's very tangible for the healing.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
You just touched on, you kind of giggled when you said who your mom was trained with. So I'm wondering, how long has past life regression been part of your lives? What was the introduction for you both into past life regression?
Well, I guess I'll start with where it started with me first, right,
Yeah.
Sarah?
Mm-hmm. I was like, we're both kind of raised with it, but you start.
We were both raised with it, yeah. So I was introduced to past life regression by my mother because she would speak to me about it. She started talking about it because initially she went to some psychics who had told her about her past lifetimes. And that's when she started getting this fascination with it. And then we lived in Virginia Beach, where Sarah said is the ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment, where Edgar Casey did his work. And that's where we lived, right around the corner from the ARE. So she would take me to lectures. I can remember Dr. Norm Shealy. Now, he was a neurosurgeon, And he was an investigator and researcher into energy medicine and our connection with past lives. So at the age of 10, I was listening to these seminars from him. That was so fascinating because I was 10 listening to his lectures, full circle. I was 44 and asked him to be the guest on my podcast when I had my blog talk radio show. And he came on 3 different times because he's
Wow.
written like 10 books. And you know what I think is that the universe gave certain people, like Sarah says, we are both right and left brain. So as Dr. Brian Weiss, as Dr. Norm Shealy, I think the universe gave these gifts to people because they could bring this whole other feel into this topic. It's just like, Dr. Brian Weiss was a psychiatrist trained at Yale, never believed in any of this until Catherine, while he was doing, that age regression, popped back into a past lifetime. Just like Dr. Norm Shealy, neuroscientist. No, he never believed in it until he had his own personal experience. And then he connected with his higher guides and they channeled all these messages. And so I do think the world responds better to right and left brain because there is a reality to this. There is this rationale to it. There is this healing for it. So yeah, how did I get introduced? Mother, ARE, all day long.
Nana Sunny.
Yes.
You guys, didn't she hold meditation groups at your home growing up too?
Oh my gosh, yes. She got so into the ARE. So she became she had they were called study groups, the Edgar Cayce study groups. And they would be at our home on a weekly basis. Me, 10 years old with all adults, we would learn how to go into this deeper and deeper meditation. And that was pivotal. I mean, they trained me how to read auras in this group. They trained these group of people that were Edgar Cayce followers. I mean, I learned so much from these study groups. It was incredible. And then she would take me up to the library at the ARE and I would just sit and read his readings at 10, 11. I found it fascinating. He wrote so much about Atlantis, which I found fascinating. So many of the souls that he was pulling answers for had been in Atlantis, highly evolved beings. And I would just sit and read his readings constantly. And then she would take me into the meditation room where I took you, Sarah, when we visited there. It's this room, Angelique, that overlooks the Atlantic Ocean. And there's curtains of the rainbow through the room. And you can see through them as, before you shut your eyes to meditate. And people come from all over the world. The energy sitting in this room is beyond, wasn't it, Sarah, beyond words?
No, it's amazing. You feel, any kind of like very sacred spiritual place, when you go there, right, you feel the energy. And I always know, like, I can just sit in meditation, sit in a space of contentment so quickly. So, it's a amazing place to be. And oh man, Nana Sunny, she was just like an intuitive. She didn't train under it. She just knew.
Yeah, it resonated. So long answer to how did it start for me? And then Sarah, how did it start for you?
Well, right. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously I grew up with mom and Nana Sunny. So it was really embedded into my childhood as, just what was. I mean, we did go to, the non-denominational church. And so we were part of that, but this was also a very spiritual practice that we had in the home around manifesting and how our thoughts affect our emotions and our behaviors, and getting curious about what's going on in the body and what it might be linked to somewhere else, or why might somebody be showing up in our lives who might be a really toxic or difficult person. Or it's these ways of reframing through a spiritual lens around the soul lessons and evolving. And it has always been kind of the topic. I think I remember most around when I would have sleepovers, and in the mornings we would wake up and all share our dreams with mom. And we'd all talk about our dreams and have her interpret them, and and start to unpack the metaphor, which is a really interesting thing, because if you think about dreams, right, it's your subconscious bringing a message to your conscious mind through all these metaphors, right? When we know it's not, if you're dreaming about being pregnant, right, classically, it's not that you are pregnant, right? So it's a symbol that your brain uses, and it uses something that's going to make you look at it, right? So people have a dream about being pregnant, you're going to think about it. But it's really about the birthing of something new. Like what's going on is an idea or a project or something new that's coming to light. And so in that same way, whether somebody believes in past life regression or not, when they have this felt experience, when they see these images, these metaphors, their subconscious is providing them these messages for you for healing, whether it is in your belief system or not. And so if you look at it in that kind of comparison, right, because dreams are wild, right? They're actually not true, but the narrative and the story and the healing you can gain from it allows you to be okay. And so I've had many people who aren't, it's not in their typical belief structure, past lives, multiple lives, but they have still gained the healing. And Mom, I know you have, because a lot of people who've come to you through the years, they have tried all the modalities and they're like, fine, okay, I'll give this a shot.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And the dreams are huge. I always tell people once they have a regression that look at your dreams in the next 2 or 3 nights, because then you've awakened your subconscious and it can actually flesh out the rest of that lifetime for them. And they're there experiencing and can pick up so many other things than we were able to access just in the 3 or 4 hours we were doing it. So the dreams are huge. And yes, Sarah, your friends were fascinated with telling me their dreams every morning, which my clients still are. I mean, people, they don't understand how dreams work and the source. I always say, please write down your dreams, bring them in. It's my assistant therapist. It's helping me. I will understand you better and where you're at if you can do this with me, just like journaling, bring it in. It's my assistant, I can really access and help people so much more. So yeah, it's I was just working with someone yesterday on their dreams. Everybody is writing down their dreams and bringing them in. And as I help them learn to interpret it, then they can do it for themselves now. And that is the beauty in this. Everything can be learned. You don't always have to go somewhere else to get this expertise. This is a learning like anything else.
So interesting to hear about the family of origin and the way this was kind of passed down through the line. The language, the beliefs. Yeah. And it makes me wonder, since you both were introduced so early, what was your first experience with having your own past life regression? Was it a session, or was it an organic, spontaneous experience in this group meditative family dynamic that seemed to be quite normal for you guys coming up?
Well, it is pretty normal now, right? But you know where I actually did my first past life regressions? Because my mother kept telling me I was too young at 10 to do it. So I wasn't able to do it then. But actually where I had my own is when I went and did my training as a therapist with Dr. Brian Weiss. So as I was doing that past life regression training with him in 1991, part of that training involved having a partner and guiding them on the regression. And then they guided me on the regression. So this was a whole week. We went back and forth. And I'll never forget. So the therapist that guided me back to a past lifetime actually led me to, it was 3 or 4 of them. And I had just recently met Ron, who is my husband now of 34 years. And I was so curious if we had a past life together. So that was the intention I went into it with. And I found 4 of them with him. So it was that we were 4. We were pirates together in one life. It was this wild adventure on the seas. In another one, we were both male and best friends fighting in this horrific battle. Like we literally had our backs to each other with the swords, and we both died at an early age. And then he was royalty living in a castle in England, and I was the scullery maid having the affair with him. And we had such a romance that he ended up leaving his lineage. He left the castle and went to live with me, and we lived in the countryside because he was so in love with me. So it was really wild. That was my actual first experience getting a past life regression. And then I learned how to channel messages from spirit. And so they told me about several other lifetimes. But it was when Sarah was learning to do them. She did it with me, which was a fabulous experience. And she regressed me to Greece, where I was a philosopher and a teacher. And you know what? That's actually an episode on our podcast where I talk all about that lifetime. That was episode 90. That you can actually go back to and look at. So it was really, it was lots of different ones.
Mom, when you shared that with Ron, so for background, Ron was raised Catholic.
Yes.
Right? This is not in his belief structure prior to meeting you. How did he receive that? Hearing all of this, like these stories about the past lives that were intertwined?
With open arms. He had never even heard the term, but he knew. He said, when I touched you for the first time, something went through me that I knew you. And so this made total sense to him. He's like, he just knew me. It was like
it confirmed the connection that he felt inside from just this first meeting. Interesting.
He didn't know anything about past life regression. Yeah. And then he was, again, I had literally just met him, and I'm going to this training with Dr. Brian Weiss, and of course, bubbling over, talking about all of this, and he's listening to it all, and he's like, makes total sense. Makes total sense. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Everybody loves a good love story. Now I want to see a movie of all the lifetimes coming through.
Oh, that's good.
You know what, Angelique, I was always when I was a female and he was a male, I was always his mistress. Always. The pirate. And I said, well, at least in this lifetime, you came in to make me legit. How interesting is this? This is a legit lifetime.
So when you did that, was that more past life regression, or did you do healing work in those lifetimes?
No, we did healing work, some healing work, but remember, I was doing it in the training, so they were not really trained to do it very effectively. It was more about, can you access the past life, guide her through the life, and so it wasn't the same because you know that's that whole different piece that we have ended up doing. Yeah,
my first regression, I think, was when I was about 18 or 19, right, Mom? Yeah. I was in college, and I came home one weekend, not to the childhood home, but we were at a beach condo, and Mom was just, I wonder what year that was. So maybe it'd been like,
you were a freshman.
Yeah, freshman in college. So I was having a lot of issues with my roommate. If you may not know, I was very shy and conflict avoidant. I didn't like to speak up. I was really bad about like communicating my boundaries. So therapy was a good space for me to go into because I learned a lot of tools and healing. But at that time, I would get very flustered and tear up. And I had a roommate who was very in her masculine, very strong, very dominant, and it just shut me down. And I didn't know how to deal with it because it was causing so much angst inside of me. And so we did a regression. And I think it was like a rainy beach day because it was like in the back room, and we're like, oh, let's just give it a shot. So Mom regressed me and ended up going to a lifetime. And it's interesting. It's so long ago. And when you're in the hypnotic trance, you are so in it and so present, but it's hard to remember all the details until kind of cued in afterwards. So I have kind of the highlights of it. But in the lifetime, we went through different significant events of that life. And at the end, which is the picture that really stands out in my mind, is like I'm on this like wooden stage. There's a lot of people around. It's maybe like 1800s kind of vibe, outdoors. And I was like being like persecuted. Like I was about to be hung for something I didn't do. And so in that lifetime, I never spoke up. I never righted the wrong. I just allowed it to be. I was sitting in so much fear that I couldn't say anything, and then died. and in these regressions, right, when there is trauma, I am not actually feeling it. I am the observer of it. I'm a witness to it because I don't have to re-experience the pain in order to gain the healing. And so that's also really nice for people to know. It's not like you're feeling these traumas. You do not have to do that. So I see myself going through that, feeling these emotions for myself. But it was in the healing, right, as I'm like gaining all these understandings around, right, my throat chakra. It was blocked. I didn't allow it. And so there was such a clearing in that space. And I don't even know what the lessons were. It wasn't a time when you were doing transcriptions. We were just doing the healing around it. But it was a very felt sense of, I need to speak up for myself. It's okay to like share my voice. And from that point on, I mean, that's more than half my life ago. It has really expanded where I am much more able to speak up and to step into conflict and have these healing conversations. Like that's never happened again, where I just sat as like a passenger allowing things to happen. It was it was so amazing. And like for me, I've always danced around like, was this real? I'm not somebody who has all the facts and the names and what happened. But the feeling and the learning from it was powerful for me to shift.
Right. That was just your first
Wow.
one.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, to think the ripples. And I think that brings us back to the next question I had is like, what is the difference? Like, do you have to be a therapist to do past life regression? And that's what I was thinking as those memories come up with people who have trauma. What does that look like without a therapeutic process? And when people are searching out, if they're watching this podcast and they're like, oh, maybe this is something I want to dabble in. What's some tips of the trade for them?
Well, so you don't have to be a therapist to do a past life regression because other people can be trained. But I can't tell you how many clients have come to me for these regressions that speak about having tried it with someone else before, or they went to a psychic and they were told about their past life, and they never received the answers that they ended up taking away from the regressions they did with me. Like it was all new aha moments. So in my mind, it's really a gift that I'm a therapist as well, because I understand what healing techniques have to be used at the end of each lifetime to get these painful cellular memories to get resolved, because it's similar to the therapeutic techniques I use as a therapist in a conscious level. So I use all of these different techniques depending on their needs. And by the time the session is over, that lifetime that their soul took them back to is resolved for them. They're at peace. So there is no trauma or unresolved cellular memory. So any trauma kind of dissipated, and then when they access right after that space between lifetimes, they understand completely why they had to go through it. So even more healing is achieved. And again, because it's so much of what we do as therapists, I mean, I think it's just the perfect combination. I don't know. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah. So you have to be certified and trained as a hypnotherapist. And so anybody can go and do that training. But what Mom is speaking to is the level of healing that you're able to reach. So certainly as a licensed therapist, there's all these tools that we have in order to complete the healing, and we are trauma trained and able to approach, the traumas in a very healing way rather than just observing everything. We can use the protocols that we understand in order to create that deep healing. I think there are other kinds of somatic coaches and NLP coaches who have gone beyond hypnotherapy who can do some healing too. But I think it's safest to say when you have the licensed therapist who's doing past life regression, you have the best shot at getting complete healing. Because even Mom, remember when Yara came on from 90 Day and she said, I love past life regression. I told all my friends to do it. They went out, they got it, and they did not have a good experience.
And what did she say? And she said, I told you to go to Petey. Didn't I tell you to go to Petey?
Yeah.
She was so cute.
Because even think about like something in childhood that if you know about, like if we did an age regression and you understand, okay, there was a trauma when I was 5 years old. Okay, I understand it now. But if it just stayed there, you would still be triggered. You would still have those wounds that would not be closed. So it's the same thing. It's just experience it in a different life.
And I was going to say, you briefly mentioned earlier, but I think it's important for people to know that the sessions that y'all are referring to, I remember the first time y'all telling me that they're hours long. So this isn't like you come in for an hour session therapy session. Like this is like a fucking whole experience, which I think speaks to the commitment of the process of like what can be activated as you go into a journey. I mean, there has to be layers to that process. I think about when I deal with people with trauma, there are different layers that we go through, like the onion we pull back. So for you guys, when I first heard, I think Petey, you told me it was like a 3-hour session you had one time, and I was like, wow, okay, well, that is a big difference than what most people are thinking price wise. If I look at the price, I'm going to get a past life regression, what all comes with that. But I think y'all's investment is what makes it, probably gives it so much more space to do a lot of that therapeutic processing after the recall.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Angelique, because, initially when I started, I thought, naively, I'll start with an hour and a half. That hour and a half became 2, became 2.5, became 3. Now, because of doing the 90 Day Fiancé series, people contacting me from all around the world wanting to fly in, it's 4 hours. It's a 4-hour session because there are so many layers, and I'm doing it in my one shot with them as they fly in. So yes, it has evolved. And so because while you're in this state of hypnosis, this deep relaxation, you don't want to have to pull somebody up. Oh, time is up. No, I devote one full day to each client I do that regression with. So I am there and available to go through this with them.
And for the client, it doesn't feel like that. So when you're in a hypnotic state, right? And people feel that if you are in a deep conversation and flow and fun, a conversation that you're with your best friend, you're catching up and you're like, whoa, that hour just flew by, right? Yes. That's a light hypnotic trance. You're in that space where time shifts. So when you're in the regression, you feel so relaxed. It feels, you are so deeply relaxed. It feels so good to be in it. And it feels like, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And you come out, you're like, that was 4 hours. You have no idea because time is distorted and you're very present in it. So as a participant, it's a wonderful state to be in. Being in a hypnotic state is the most deeply relaxed meditative state I can ever reach.
That's good to know.
Even for you, Sarah, even, if I drop into my hypnosis voice, Sarah starts to close her eyes. She is
off.
So
when I was first learning, mom was in the office doing a past life regression with a client, and the client was open to me being there to kind of like start training. And I remember having the protocol, the script, and I was sitting there upright, not laying down. And she started going into, the progressive relaxation and starting the hypnotic voice. And I just it just was grabbing me because I'm so, yeah. She's like, how to get my attention.
I am trying to, and every sound you hear, you'll go deeper and deeper relaxed. As I'm trying to wake her up over here. It was so wild.
Yeah.
It
And
was.
that's what happens. Like after you've already done one time, you get through, like once you hear, the like a hypnosis voice, a guided visualization, once you kind of trust the process a little bit about going into the subconscious, it starts to get easier and easier, and it feels so good. So you just go into it very easily. And so that's why we give a lot of opportunities over the retreat in order to practice going into that space. And we give audios ahead of time with these guided visualizations and like light hypnosis. So people get used to what that feels like. And the more you do it and the better it feels, the more you want to do it. And so it just starts to like roll into it.
Yeah. So you get lots of opportunities. So it's not just a one-time thing. It is that learning. So one time will be, some early childhood memories. Another time is going to be the past life regression that's done in a group. Another time will be the space between lifetimes. So this progressive learning throughout this week of past life regression therapy is just going to sink deeper and deeper. So it's a real learning curve, and beautiful to have people for a week to do this with.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it myself. So the deep question that all of us are wondering about past life regression is, what does it mean for the Christians? What is the philosophy? If you hear past life regression, what does this mean about your religion? I know I'm from the South, I'm from the Bible Belt, so it's just something that I always have to put on the table when I talk to people who do things outside of the box, is can you speak to what that means for our religions or our belief systems if we want to come on this retreat and that's what's blocking us? What do you have to say to us to get us over the hump?
Well, I think it's a great question because, honestly, people have believed that the soul moves between lifetimes. You were going all the way back to Plato, right? So all the way back. And this concept of reincarnation, well, it's found in Buddhist, Hinduism, Sikhism, and then there's also groups within Catholicism and Islam, interestingly enough, who do believe in reincarnation. I can't tell you how many Catholics I regress, and it is a whole conversation. Okay, is this, not going to be supported? And it's like they all have these, it's very interesting. I say, go explore it. Speak to people, speak to people in your church, and they do, and they're like, yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine. So it's very interesting, I think, and then when Dr. Brian Weiss just kind of exploded this whole past life regression, whole theory, since this late 20th century, you can see, though, how much further it goes back. And I do believe Catherine was Catholic, who he did. So it's like, no, it's, how open you choose to be is the experience you're going to have. So that's the beauty, that people are coming to us. We're not searching for people. People are coming to us for answers. And even if they feel that it could conflict a bit, they're so desperate for answers. And as Sarah said, they can even feel that it's their higher self that's giving them these answers, through the metaphor of a past life, and they still get healed. So it's what they choose to be open to that creates the difference.
Yeah. And, if you look at the concepts of like narrative therapy, right? The stories we tell ourselves and what we always have. And when we rewrite the story, we have these different felt experiences and we have these different learnings around what was, right? So even in, I often talk about my stuff with my dad, my biological dad. And, I used to always be like, oh, he's such a name I won't say on air, right? Like I would something, whatever. And I would just say he was so this and bad. And it was more like I was in a kind of victim space. These happened to me. And when I kind of rewrote that narrative around like understanding, like, his childhood was really rough and he did the best he could with the tools he had. And he had a lot of, blocks for himself that he will have to continue to learn. I no longer was holding this rage around it and this like anger towards it. There was a lot more compassion. And so when thinking about that with these stories, like these memories and past lives, it can be looked at the same way, right? We reframe these stories, we reframe this problem in your current life through the lens of past life regression. And now it feels different. Now
I
you
love that.
understand, oh, my asthma was me always catching my breath, right? My neck pain or my lack of being able to use my voice is because I was hung. Okay, I get it now. I don't need to carry this anymore. It feels released, even if it's not in your belief structure.
And then we take that even further, Sarah, with exploring what possibly would have been the soul lesson of
Right.
why this presented for you. So not only do you get to process the healing of that, you understand it was being presented for you. You did ask your dad to present in such a difficult way so that you could find your voice, so that you could learn to trust again. All of the things, it just starts to all make sense. It's like the life of a puzzle, we call it, makes sense then. And that is such a healing gift for someone. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
I've seen this with trauma work too. Sometimes it's like rock bottom gives people access to try things outside of their box, outside of the norm, to challenge, like you said, the story. And I love the way you presented that, Sarah, because I think it gives us another way to enter in, even if this language, past life regression, doesn't fit into our boxes. Reframing, and we know storytelling is an extremely healing process for so many of us. So it kind of leads me to my next question. As we go on a retreat and we're with a group of people, what does this look like when we're on retreat? How is this going to be facilitated?
I think it's twofold, because not only are we going to explain the philosophy behind it and a lot of the learnings that we do on a daily basis with our clients, then they'll also experience it in the group Past Life Regression. And it's interesting because I was trying to think when I first did a group Past Life Regression, and Sarah, you'll probably remember
in the office.
Yes, in the office. I did it in our reception area. I had 12 people laying.
We moved all the tables and things out of the lobby in order to create a group space.
And 12 people laid on the floor. And for 8 weeks, I guided them through past life regressions and then helped them process the experiences. I mean, they were huge. And then so I started, and I would post on it, and then other people asked me to do it. Unity Church, which is where we were going at the time, asked me to do it for 100 of their members. I took their whole church, and they were laying all over the floor in the pews and then they asked me to do it 2 more times at the church because people had missed it. And so it was like this huge past life experience. And because I was questioning, can this be done in a large group? Oh, yes, it can. And then I went to doing full day seminars with like Mary for the whole day, where I was the guide again for past life. And then Sarah and I started doing these retreats where we did the group regressions at the beach, and kind of the rest is history after that, because the way that I learned how to guide people in a group setting with questions on how they can explore what past life they're in their own space, for the experience of a person to have that aha moment. So that's huge. I mean, I think that is a really big piece that they can access. Well, Sarah, you did it in the group setting when we were
I mean, I've done individual and I've done group, and you can find the same healing because you are able to connect to these questions and you're being guided. And as soon as you come out of the regression, you're journaling, right? Like as if you wake up in the morning, you don't go right to your phone, you can journal the dreams and you still have it, right? If you go distract, you lose it. So as soon as you come out of regression, you can write everything down and start to find the healing. And then we do small group breakouts to kind of understand what has been processed. But there's so much that if you are open and willing, if your mindset is ready, then you can receive the healing. People used to have a block around, I have to be in person to do a regression. That's the only way. Yeah. And we all know it's an energetic space. We can do virtual, we can do telehealth, and you can have the same healing. The only limitation is if you decide you can't. So as soon as somebody says, okay, yes, I'm open, to this healing, then they find that it is facilitated quite easy for them.
Yeah. Beautiful. Are there any particular stigmas that you feel like you face in the field of past life regression?
All of them.
Yeah, there is probably with the first words, past life regression.
Right.
It's just still, it's amazing to me how many people have never still heard of it, because it's just been my world for so many years. But
yeah, I think the main one is around the religion piece. People get it starts to battle, like, is this aligned with my faith and my belief system, and what does this mean if I go and do this? Similar to some spaces feel this way about yoga, right? That maybe I wouldn't be able to do yoga, and how that interacts with my religious space. But yoga can be seen as just like movement in the body to ground yourself. It doesn't have to be that you are connecting to something outside of your own belief system. So once people understand that they are still fully aligned in their belief system, this is just a tool, a modality for deep healing, then it goes away. But there is an educational component, because it is people feel very connected, obviously, to their religious beliefs, and so it can be perceived as a threat. And once there's the learning and understanding, they know it's so safe.
Yeah, and I think I wonder too, when I think past life regression, like, am I going to lay there and this travel through time is going to happen, and I'm going to pop out in a whole other world? I think that there's a part entering from the outside that it's like, well, how intense is this going to be? Like, am I going to lose consciousness and enter into this past life? So can you speak to that felt sensation of when we're laying in meditation, how present are we and how gone are we?
You are in control the entire time. You do not lose consciousness. You do not surrender control. You have full control the entire time.
Right.
You are in a hypnotic state, and you have the ability to emerge out of it at any point if you choose. People just choose to stay in it because it feels so good, and they feel really safe about the process.
Yeah. Because in hypnosis, because the conscious mind is engaged at some level, and that's where people can choose to remember those moments, or some choose not to. So that's also why I do the transcription after each one, because every word is, kind of written down for memory. But the conscious mind is always there, present and aware. So, even to the point where I tell people when they're in person and I'm doing it, I've had someone have to go to the bathroom in the middle. They can get up, go to the bathroom, come back, lay back down, and be in that space again. I was doing a regression in my office, and the UPS guy came in and banged on the door, and all I was saying was, every sound's making you feel more and more relaxed. And it's the client giving themselves permission, right? It's giving themselves permission for the healing to occur. Yeah.
And as you're being guided into it, it becomes really interesting, because you are observing and witnessing these different events. So it becomes more of a state of curiosity and intrigue rather than anything that is scary or fearful, because even if it is something that was traumatic, or maybe there was, it is, something that you might feel like was shameful in the past. Like, some people will say that, like, what if I was this like bad person in the past? All of this is just to create the healing, like, just like in a dream, right? If you were killing somebody in a dream, it is a symbolic meaning of what is the purpose of that? What is the lesson that we're pulling from that? And so as you go through that and be curious about it, you stay in a really peaceful state because you're starting to connect the pieces. And in hypnosis, your conscious mind is 2 to 3 times more alert. So you are actually making connections much faster in that space than you would be in any kind of talk therapy.
Yeah, I think we all have this very old image of like people on stage who got hypnotized and are told
Totally.
to do weird things. So that's what made me
Yeah.
think of that question. Is like now I think we all have in our collective unconscious
Yeah.
mind, someone's going to control me if I give them access to hypnotize me.
When I did my hypnosis training, my trainer, when he started out, he was doing stage hypnosis, and so we asked about that, right? Because that's a big fear. People like, what if I lose this control, quote unquote? And he's like, when people are in that space and we are doing a show, the willingness and desire is so high. People are raising their hands, pick me, pick me, pick me. That the desire is so high that they're ready. They are just ready. So when people go on stage, they start to go through some of the, introductory like hypnotic techniques. He's like, right away, you can see if somebody is wanting to be in the space or not. And so they kind of, see people like go off stage, and the ones who remain have this intense level of willingness and desire to be on there, and an okayness about it being a little, being silly. Because there's still an awareness, but the desire is so high. So I would never want to be in that space. So I know if I said yes and I got on there, I'd be like, no. And I would just not allow myself to go into it. I would reject every suggestion and walk off because I don't want to do that. But Mom, do you remember in college, my best friend, Ginny?
Yes.
She went on stage and did that. But she's a performative girl. She wanted to so much. And she is a jokester and was so willing, so desired to be up there. That then you are a great participant, but you have to want it. You are never going to lose control.
All right.
And Angelique, I'm thinking of another question that tends to come up when you say sometimes, what do people say? They always say, am I making this up? Am I making this up? Because if they are not visual, which we know only 20% of people actually see these things in a lifetime, other people have a knowingness, and they come from that knowingness, their intuitive side. So when the questions are asked, what do you see or know to be on your feet? They have that inner knowing, oh, I have boots on, they're black, but they don't see them. So for some people that are not visual, some of them, oh, did I make this up? Could this be? And absolutely, just like we addressed earlier, well, if you feel that it might not be real, you still develop this metaphor from your subconscious, and we still were able to do healing, and they acknowledge that. So then it becomes a non-issue.
Wow. Yeah. Man, this has been a great conversation. I definitely feel way more informed and looking forward to our retreat now that I know what I'm in for. And it's not giving over control and time traveling to an extent of what I had stuck in my mind. So tell us, like, if there's people who want to have sessions with you, how do they book sessions? And tell us a little bit about the retreat, when and where.
So we both offer regressions, and we'll link to our websites on there. We're also doing some free 30-minute coaching calls. So if people want to if it's their first time connecting with us, they can go to the link below in the show notes and have a free 30-minute coaching session. And if they want a little taste of being guided, or they want to heal in some way, Mom and I are offering these just to kind of expand. Because I think once people understand and have the conversation, they feel more ease, right? So I think this was a great idea to do this podcast. And the retreat is super exciting, right? It's down in Costa Rica. It's May 12th through May 18th. What's great is we're going to start in San Jose, and then we're going to take a little plane down to Dominical. And it is a 5-star luxury space that is beautiful. I love that they didn't cut down any trees to be there. But on this space, the 3 of us are working together because we do have the full campus. We wanted to make sure we had enough facilitators for some of the small group work, so people felt very, close to the facilitators. So we will be doing a lot of psychoeducation in terms of like, what are soul lessons? What's past life regression? What's your homeostasis in terms of talking about this lifetime? And then we'll also fold in the somatic work, understanding how we'll do some yoga and meditation. And then we'll do 2 group past life regressions. So 1 into a past life and 1 between lifetimes. Which, Mom, do you want to talk to that a little bit?
The between life regression.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where you actually will receive all of the answers that you probably came to the retreat for,
Right.
because it's in the between lifetime space that we do a lot of things. We find your spirit guide. We'll find your guardian angel. You will have conversations with souls that have transitioned before if you choose to. That's a big reason. Another reason a lot of people come to do these regressions. Perhaps somebody committed suicide or had an untimely death and they never had an ending conversation. Their soul can meet their soul between lifetimes to have that conversation. And then I have them go to the Council of Elders, where they originally created their soul contract for this lifetime. And that's where, oh my gosh, they get to ask all the questions, which I lead and suggest questions. They can ask them, they can ask different ones, but what they learn through that is why these people are in their life today. What are the soul lessons that they created for these experiences? What is their life purpose for this lifetime? It is this magical space of learning that happens in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so it will be a very, we're therapists, like it will be a very healing retreat, but also if you know Mom and I, we're also really playful, so we'll have ecstatic dance and cacao ceremonies and breath work. We're going to go down to the beach and we'll do the waterfall hike, and so we also play a lot, so there's time to enjoy the pool and be on property and to be in the space. So we're not just grinding. You're going to like do the work and also have time to reset in the body. So it is fully this mind, body, and spirit retreat where we will hit all of those. We curated a schedule where there is some of the deep work and some of the play every day. There's no, intensity of this. There's such a beautiful flow. Because that's how we are, right? We want to hit all the pieces of it. We want to do the healing work and then connect and laugh and reset and move our bodies and kind of do the full spectrum of it.
Yeah, we love to laugh. Didn't you say, Sarah, spiritual people laugh a lot?
I do say that.
You do say that. Oh, and we also should mention that on March 25th is that whole Zoom call where Sarah and I are giving some valuable tools so you can kind of get to know us better and some of our therapeutic work. And then if you have any questions about the retreat, then that would be a place for it too. So yeah, March 25th, you'll find that information on the website as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited for our next call, and that's an invitation for anyone who's watching. If you want to drop in and ask questions yourself with these 2 ladies, I will be there helping facilitate that call as well. And it's a great opportunity to ask questions and get details regarding the retreats or having private sessions. So I am looking forward to that. And thank you both so much for allowing me to sit in and switch places with you. It's always such a pleasure to just listen and be part of the creative conversations that you both get to share. So until next time, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. This has been great. Questions we never think to ask, because when you're raised in it, you kind of just forget it's new information.
Yes.
Yeah.
So true.